Great. Good afternoon. My name is Dave McLaughlin. I am, as Michelle mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of Clean Ocean Access, and we are a local environmental group based here in Newport, Rhode Island. We good to go?
Mm-hmm.
And we have been fortunate to be a grantee of 11th Hour Racing for the last couple of years, and the project that we started last year was to try to address the problem of marine debris and really promote environmental stewardship in Newport Harbor with the vision of trying to make sure that we spread that message to a broader community. And one of the things that we did was we implemented some Marina Trash Skimmers, which is a technology that's been around for about 15 years, and we are the first group to actually implement them on the East Coast. So we're going to go through some details about the trash skimmers and also the implementation that we did, and then some perspective about the topic of marine debris. And I welcome all questions, especially the hard ones. So a little bit about Clean Ocean Access. We were founded in 2006. We became a nonprofit in 2014. We work exclusively on Aquidneck Island, so down here in Newport. There's Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth, so there's 3 communities. We have basically 3 programs. We focus on marine debris, water quality, and protecting and preserving shoreline access, and it's all held together with the community program as well. So there's a lot on these slides, but you can look at them at a later time. So one of the things to think about when you're looking at a technology to address what I will say is marine debris that is already in the ocean, or in your marina, your harbor, is to think about the impact that you're trying to achieve, who's going to help operate the units, and also the level of commitment from yourself, i.e. the partner. And to explain the impact side, I would look at that from a couple different points of view. One hand is the problem and the severity and the frequency of the marine debris that's accumulating in your particular water body. And I think the other one is the potential for leveraging the technology to influence change and to really foster environmentally responsible behaviors. I think here in Newport, we're really in a situation where the marine debris problem from an impact point of view is anywhere from low to medium, and the opportunity for promoting responsible behaviors and stewardship is medium to high. So when you bring those 2 variables together, you can really create that value proposition of what type of technology that you should use. But I wanted to cover also the grand scheme of different types of solutions out there that are to deal with marine debris that's in the ocean already. So at a very large level, there's the Ocean Cleanup Project, which is a grand idea of how do we fix the problem of all the existing marine debris that's everywhere in the entire ocean. So this is obviously a large project. It's very expensive. It requires a lot of resources. We put it out there because we try to put the scale of these different topics. The next thing that you could explore is you could look at a harvester. So this is actually, it's probably a multi-million-dollar investment of a vessel with equipment that would go around in your particular marina or harbor and actually collect the debris that's accumulating. There's numerous places that are using these effectively, but this would really be as if you have a very large amount of debris that you actually need a machine that would remove, you're talking about a dumpster's worth in a particular day's worth of work. So this is a mobile unit that collects a lot of debris within basically a closed basin. Another option would be a water wheel. Currently there's one in Baltimore, which is highly, it's been personified, and it's got a lot of high visibility. It collects, thousands of pounds of debris potentially in a given day. It's removed over 1 million pounds of debris so far. Currently, they're looking at putting in another water wheel in the Peachtree Creek, right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, with the Georgia Aquarium. So again, this is a large piece of equipment, different from the harvester. This is a stationary object, whereas the harvester moves around. But again, you're looking at a large source of debris and a means of collecting it. The interesting thing about the water wheel is it's actually driven by water power and has solar as well. Then to a little bit of a smaller scale, you're looking at a trash skimmer, where this is a picture of the unit that we have, one of the 2 units in the Newport Harbor. Now we're looking at a unit that can collect perhaps 25 to 50 pounds of debris then you need to empty the unit. We've had a couple days in the Newport Harbor that we've removed upwards of about 150 pounds of debris. But again, it's one of those things that you've got to scale your solution based on the problem. And lastly, the Seabin, which I think is now rolling out in production. This is a much smaller unit. You'd probably be able to collect 5, maybe 10 pounds of debris before you'd have to actually empty the unit. So in general, there's a wide variety of different types of solutions out there, and it really depends on the scale of the problem that you're trying to address. So a little basics about how does a skimmer work. It's not that complicated. There's a water circulation pump at the bottom of the unit that ejects water out of the skimmer. This then results in creating an inward flow of surface water into the skimmer, and then the floating surface debris enters with that surface current, and because of the motion of the pump, the debris essentially stays there resident in the skimmer. You come by later on, you lift the lids up, you remove the items. So that's the basic technology, is that it has a water circulation pump to push the water out, which allows the water to come in, and then the debris, if it's floating on the surface, all collects. A little basics about the skimmer specifics. A gentleman by the name of Lewis, I won't even try to pronounce his last name because I forgot exactly how to pronounce it, but he invented the unit in San Diego about 14, 15 years ago. He then partnered with Marina Accessories out of Bellingham, Washington. They're the manufacturer and the vendor and the producer of the machinery. The initial cost is about $10,000. The item itself is made out of rotomolded polyethylene plastic. It's a sturdy piece of equipment. It weighs approximately 600 pounds. It's about the size of a medium-sized dumpster. The pump, it's only a 3/4 horsepower water circulation pump, but it moves hundreds of gallons of water per minute. From an electricity point of view, you're looking at maybe $1 to $2 per day, depending on how much you pay for electricity. And as far as activities goes, there's the daily activity of checking and emptying the unit. Sometimes you might have to do that 1 or 2, 3 times a day. Depending on the weather, you might skip 2 or 3 days. It all depends on your locale. On a weekly basis, you should clean the grate under the unit. You should scrub the side of the unit, check the connections. It's essentially like having a boat in the water, so you're going to see algae and growth accumulate on the sides of it, given the different environmental conditions. And on a seasonal basis, you should remove the unit from the water, you should pressure wash it, and you should do a complete inspection. Last year in Newport, we put the units in the water in early August. We took them out in October. There was certainly a lot of algae growth and crustacean on the outside, but it was very simple to pressure wash them. And then we took them out in the 3rd week of December, and we did the same thing. So a little bit about the problem statement of what we were trying to address in Newport was when stormwater runs off and enters the harbor, it does contain pollutants and debris. It impairs water quality and it degrades the aquatic habitat. A little map, if you're not familiar with the area, on the left-hand side in red, the area of Newport. Parati Park is like the northeast corner of the Newport Harbor, and on the middle right side of the page here, you're looking at a 60-inch diameter stormwater outfall pipe, which essentially carries all of the stormwater for a large portion of the watershed for the city of Newport, essentially all the way up Broadway, up a portion of Spring Street, Toro Street to the Hotel Viking. So when it rains, if there is litter on the roadways, it will end up in this particular corner. That's kind of the litter component that becomes marine debris, and then also because of the geography here, prevailing winds of southwest in the summertime, anything that's floating in the harbor will end up in this northeast corner of the Newport Harbor. The picture down here, we're looking at May 31st, actually from last year. So this was a day where there was a very large precipitation event, and sure enough, there was a ton of floating debris. If I zoomed in on this picture, which you can probably see just a little bit, is there were quite a few cigarette butts in the water, but there's just about everything else as well. So the impact statement of what we were trying to address was to reduce the amount of marine debris, improve water quality, increase the recreational value of the waterfront, bring awareness to the types of reaccumulating debris, and promote environmental stewardship. So some days we might find a high amount of macroalgae and a low amount of debris, But in any event, every day we do find data that we can use to educate, inspire, and empower people to make better choices on a day-to-day basis to reduce really the source of marine debris. Because at the end of the day, this is a solvable problem, and it starts with the behavior of people on land. So now we've got a little video.
In 2016, Clean Ocean Access decided to tackle the problem of trash in Newport Harbor by installing 2 trash skimmers near Parati Park in partnership with the City of Newport Harbor Master, all made possible with funding from 11th Hour Racing. With help from Casey Marina, Casey Tree Specialists, Mac Designs, 6 Square Communications, and Toner Electric, we successfully installed the skimmers in early August, and the units are delivering great results. The trash skimmers operate 24 hours a day, trapping floating debris, soaking up oil sheen, and improving water quality. They are a highly effective method for addressing surface debris, require very little maintenance, and use a small amount of electricity. Besides just removing floating debris from Newport Harbor, our objectives are to inspire, educate, and empower the community to make simple changes to reduce the sources of debris. Whether it's reducing the use of single-use plastics or ensuring no trash ends up as litter, marine debris is a solvable problem, and it starts with making smart choices on land. Whether it's the wind or waves that gets us in the water, or simply walking along the waterfront, it's these experiences that connect us to nature and must be the reason that we take action to sustain life on our planet. For more information, please contact us at cleanoceanaccess.org.
So that was a little highlight of the implementation. We chose to do it on the one day that it rained in early August, so it was a pretty interesting experience, but it all worked out fine, and we had great partners. Working with the City of Newport has been very successful, and they're a great partner who helps to operate and maintain the unit. So in last year, over 4.5 months, we installed the 2 trash skimmers. We removed over 6,000 pounds of commingled debris. We did 20 detail audits, and we removed over 5,700 items. Basically, every person who got off of a cruise ship in Newport passed by the skimmers, and they were able to see them. It definitely was successful at increasing awareness of the reaccumulating debris in the harbor, and we promoted it with social media and different communication channels, and quite a few people actually saw it. A couple takeaways of some of the challenges is debris in the ocean is commingled with organic matter, and I think that this is both a global and a local issue. I think that there's been a lot of awareness that if we're going to try to clean the middle of the ocean, we can't just pick it up and throw it away. You know, the marine debris is out there. It's in the same habitat. A lot of it has the same buoyancy as macroalgae and seaweed. So addressing that issue is something that we're aware of, and we're looking at from a technology and innovation point of view of like, how do you deal with that? But overall, I don't think there's any amount of marine debris that's acceptable in the water, and there's really a small amount of macroalgae that we're removing along with the debris, but it is something that we're keenly aware of. And in general, I would say from the lessons learned is definitely focus on effective operations before embarking on really any next steps. I think once you implement a Marina Trash Skimmer, you probably look back on the experience and say, I could have done that in 3 or 4 hours. But it actually does take a little time, especially when you have different partners, the physical installation, the electrical installation, education of the staff, the crew, coordination with the environmental group that wants to actually use the data. So just give yourself time when you actually work on the installation and operation of the unit. This is a little graph of the different types of debris. None of it was really too surprising in terms of item count. I think one of the things that we found, Clean Ocean Access does hundreds of marine debris cleanup events along the shoreline, but one of the things that we found was small little pieces of fishing line, which essentially is when you go and you cut the fishing line off of a hook and you put it back on, the knot that you tied, those little pieces and fragments, because we actually went through the debris, that's one of the things that we found. We also found that there are microplastics and tiny pieces of plastic scattered throughout the water column on just about any day. And again, these are the type of things that we just weren't normally finding when we were doing beach cleanups along the adjacent shorelines. So a little bit, just a few pictures of the operations of the trash skimmer here in Newport. The city of Newport focus featured in the middle in the left-hand image essentially monitors the unit. They go down there 1 or 2, 3 times a day, remove the debris, they put it into a couple barrels, then they move the barrels a couple hundred meters away, where we come down 3 days a week and we go through the debris. So as you can see on the right-hand side, there is a lot of stuff, but it is commingled with macroalgae in our particular environment. A little more detailed analysis of some of the debris that we found on the left-hand side kind of illustrates the graph that I showed, that it is a wide variety of consumer-based plastics and packaging. Picture number 12 in the middle is really showing a piece of all the different types of microplastics and tiny bits of foam and plastic that we found in the water column. In the middle, you see a sea squirt that's growing on foam, so that's a pretty interesting find that we've never found at a beach cleanup, but it's a case of where, you know, the animals and marine life are trying to coexist with what we're putting in it, but I don't think that having a tunicate like this growing off a piece of foam is the right thing. And also just picture number 14, it really shows you that, you know, this debris that is carelessly and irresponsibly entering the water column, it just is being co-located with the rest of the ecosystem, and it's something that we have to be aware of, is that it's not just about removing, but it's about carefully removing all of the debris from the ocean, which is a monumental task. And last but not least, I really think the education and outreach is a huge component that you can leverage with the trash skimmer. People are interested in technology, and they're interested in learning what comes from it, and you can really use it to inspire people to try to think about behavior change. So we've been really successful in Newport in leveraging the results. We've moved forward with eliminating plastic bags in 2 out of 3 communities. We've got a lot of people thinking about reusable containers and really reducing their footprint, knowing that we can make a difference here locally, but we need to really send the message on a global basis that this is a real problem, but it's achievable. It's something that we can fix, and it all starts with taking action locally. So really good stuff there on the education and outreach. One of the things I mentioned in the video that I wanted to cover, because I don't think this gets enough visibility when it comes to the trash skimmer, is really about improving water quality and habitat. So there's an aerator attached to the unit, and it actually helps to the water pump, and it helps to oxygenate the water. It really has, the primary purpose is to keep the debris in suspension so that it doesn't land on the bottom of the grate in the unit, because if that happened, it would reduce the amount of water that can be pumped out of the unit. So there's actually an operational aspect of why the aeration happens, but the upside of it is that the oxidized water actually helps to oxidize the hydrocarbons and the different types of petroleum products. So it emulsifies the oil sheen, and it allows for it to be broken down, and then when those hydrocarbons come back into the unit, it attaches to the debris in the unit, so it actually helps to remove a lot of pollutants and toxins that are in the nearby water area. So we recently put in a trash skimmer with support from 11th Hour Racing up at New England Boat Works in Portsmouth, and we're seeing that it's very highly effective at reducing, really accumulating the different oil sheen and petroleum products, breaking it down, and whatever material is inside the skimmer is essentially acting as a sponge to collect it as we remove it. And also, dissolved oxygen is a critical part of a healthy ecosystem, so adding oxygen to the water will actually help with improving marine life. And in the West Coast, they've really seen that this has helped to break down organics that have settled on the bottom of the water column. And I'll try to show this in a video right here. If I can hit this button. That's essentially the aeration, the amount of water that's being oxidized by the trash skimmer up here at New England Boat Works. And the water is being ejected from the pump that's inside that well circulation area.
It's pretty warm today, huh?
So that's a little bit about the water quality aspect as well as the marine debris aspect. Give you a little bit more information about the work that we're doing here in Rhode Island, and we have the 2 trash skimmers that were activated in the city of Newport at Parati Park. We've just put in place the 2 new locations. One is at Fort Adams State Park in partnership with Sail Newport. It's currently on the State Pier, which is going to be great for the Volvo Ocean Race next year. And we also put in a 4th unit up at New England Boat Works in Portsmouth, and that's been running since mid-May with really good results. We also are looking at trying to identify potential areas around the state of Rhode Island and perhaps southeast Massachusetts to really go back to that first Venn diagram I showed is, who are potential partners, what are the impacts, what are the potential benefits that we can get for exploring additional areas for putting in trash skimmers. And that's some of the things that we're going to be exploring in the next few months. So if anyone on the webinar is in the geographical area, certainly reach out to me because we'd love to work with you to figure out how we can find the areas where we can optimize the output of additional trash skimmers. And I think this could be the last slide, and I wanted to try to put this in a little bit of a perspective. I'm not a great graphics artist, but on the left-hand side I put this piece of a puzzle. And when we look at the perspective of the problem of marine debris, we kind of look at it as 3 components. One being that there is marine debris in the ocean, which means that we need to continually remove it from the shoreline. And then the problem of litter is really how it all starts. We need to prevent that, which is obviously a much broader topic. It's about source reduction, it's about sustainability, it's about stewardship, responsible behaviors. But somewhere between new sources of debris and the existing debris is really where the trash skimmer comes into play. It's the last line of defense before litter truly becomes marine debris. So that's really where we see it playing a pivotal role of really addressing an issue, but also putting in place education. The other component is really illegal dumping, which really requires strong enforcement. Trash skimmer is not going to be designed to deal with that. And then when we think about the pillars of the solution, one of the things that we've really thought about is whether it's sailing, surfing, enjoying the coastal water, and just walking along the shoreline. We all have a connection, but where we're seeing the trash skimmer play a cool role is with technology. It is a good technology to address the problem. It fosters engagement. People are interested. People want to learn more about it. They want to make a difference. And we can then use the data that we find from the trash skimmer to actually then influence policy. So I know this is a tiny picture, but this was some students from one of the local schools testifying in front of the city council about their belief after witnessing the experiencing the Plastic Ocean movie, seeing the results of the trash skimmer, and being a voice for the environment and saying that we want to fix this issue and get rid of plastic bags. So bringing all these together is a way to try to address the problem. So with that in mind, I want to say thank you. I'm sorry if I talked fast, but I want to give everyone a time to ask questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Yes, anyone who has questions, please type them into the chat box, and we'll get to them. We already have a few here. Dave, I wonder if you could just briefly talk about the educational signage that goes along with each of the trash skimmers.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that wasn't included. So next to each trash skimmer on land, we've got a 3x4 foot sign that is a large sign that on the left-hand side, it essentially explains how the trash skimmer operates, and then on the right-hand side, it explains what people can do on land to prevent the problem. So it's been really an important piece of the equation of getting people to realize, one, what is that thing in the water, and two, what can I do on land to address the issue?
Great. And what about, are there any impacts to marine life, like fish that are floating nearby, or anything that might be in the water?
Right. We've seen 1 or 2 fish swim in the unit, and as quickly as we've seen them swim in, we've seen them swim out. So I don't have a direct line to this fish community, but I believe that they figure out that it's not an environment that they want to hang out in. We are aware that with some of the removals that there is the commingled nature, so there are some macroalgae that is at the final stage of their life cycle that we do remove. For a very short period of time this spring, we did have an influx of jellyfish, and for a few days we did actually turn off the units because they were getting pulled into the unit, and we didn't think that was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of a seasonal migratory thing. As quickly as the jellyfish arrived in the latter part of April and early May, by the second week of May they were gone.
Got it. And could you just touch again on how many hours of staff time it's taking to run and maintain these, and if there are any thoughts on reducing the amount of time that this takes?
Right. So for a partner in operating the unit, you probably are going to spend 15 to 30 minutes per day going down, looking at the unit, and removing the debris. Once you know your locale, like in the Newport Harbor, when the winds are out of the north and it's dry, there's a 99% chance that there is no debris accumulating in that corner. So once you get that institutional knowledge, you can really optimize your work schedule. But I would say from a planning point of view, you probably should allocate 15 to 30 minutes per day, knowing that some days it won't be that much, and there might be a few that require a little bit more.
Gotcha. Okay. And how deep does the water need to be to?
You probably need about 4 feet of water for a minimum depth. And again, the unit is attached to a floating dock. They can be attached to a stationary object as well. The unit itself is 5 feet tall, but about 1 to 1.5 feet sit out of the water. And you need to be careful and mindful of your local tides as well. So if you plan for 4 feet, you probably want about 5.
Gotcha. Okay. We have a question here. One of the attendees lives along the shore of Lake Pontchartrain, and as it doesn't necessarily have flowing water, would something like the water wheel be viable? And you mentioned it having solar power as backup. Would that work in non-flowing water?
Right. So if the water wasn't flowing, then the solar power would be a source of propulsion for the unit. I really think that when you consider whether or not you're looking at a water wheel, you've got to look at the magnitude of the problem, because you're really looking at a large capital investment to purchase a water wheel and to maintain a water wheel. I think that the unit in Baltimore, Maryland was upwards of $800,000 to manufacture. And I think it's a full-time job to actually operate the unit. Whereas a trash skimmer costs $10,000, and you're looking at it being, one task for an individual out of an entire workday.
Right. Here's a question. How frustrating is it when you see debris elsewhere in the harbor that's not making it to the skimmer?
Well, it's frustrating, but on the other hand, I try to address it from where's the opportunity, what can we do to fix the problem, identify where it's coming from. We see plastic bags floating around. We recognize that we've taken action. So I really think it's a matter of identifying what you're seeing and what you're doing on land to try to address the issue. We do find quite a few straws floating in the water, but we can at least feel good about the fact that we've started a last straw campaign to try to get people away from providing straws and making it more a voluntary approach. So it is frustrating to some extent. Watching the skimmer operate is like watching paint dry. You watch it for 10 or 15 minutes, nothing happens, but you come back 4 hours later and it's done a whole bunch of work. So it's pretty amazing what the skimmer can accomplish, but it just does it at a slow pace.
Great.
It's not like science fiction. It's not stirring up the whole water column.
Awesome.
How many Marina Trash Skimmers are there installed around? Are there other locations that have as many as are here in Narragansett Bay? I know there's some in San Diego, some in the Pacific Northwest.
There's about 40 units installed on the west coast of the United States. There's a few units in the Gulf. There's now 4 units in the state of Rhode Island. To the best of my knowledge, those are the only ones on the East Coast. And there's 1 unit in Kewalo Basin on Oahu in Hawaii. I know that there's other people looking at installing them on the East Coast, but that's pretty much where we're at. There's about 50 or 60 units.
Awesome. Great. And this will be our last question. But if people are interested in, putting one of these devices at their center or in their marina or harbor, what would you recommend? Should they reach out to you? Should they reach out to the manufacturer? What's the best next step?
Yeah, I would say reach out to me so that we can have a quick conversation to understand a little bit more about your area, and then I can help you get in touch with the vendor. The vendor is great to work with, and they'll definitely provide the products that you need and you purchase. You just need to make sure that you've got an implementation plan and you've got that sense of comfort and confidence as you put the units in. On the West Coast, the inventor actually plays a role of going around between the different units and doing a little oversight and management. So we don't have that here on the East Coast, but we certainly are building that in-house expertise. And as long as it's within a driving distance, we'd be happy to help.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to Clean Ocean Access for all you do here in Rhode Island. And thank you to all of our attendees today. Please, if you can, fill out the quick survey at the end and let us know what you thought of this webinar. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.